he credits Rad for a lot of the technology he developed. But this is pretty straightforward stuff. If you're familiar with Modern, you've seen Infect strategies before. This is a souped-up version of the deck. The pump spells are substantially better in Legacy, most notably Invigorate and Berserk. Those two cards are super efficient rates. Additionally, together, they represent 10 points of damage with any 1-power creature, because 1 plus 4 times 2 is 10. Another interesting dimension of this deck is the presence of Inkmoth Nexus alongside Crop Rotation. So the deck can theoretically kill from an empty board at the end of its opponent's turn into its own attack step.
All right, so his opponent, Brenden Estrada, is on Bug Delver. A tempo deck that could be pretty good here. It doesn't have too much hard removal, so this could be a difficult matchup for him. Right now, we just saw players trade a couple lands right away. And on end step there, Alan went ahead and got a Tropical Island. Brendan's going to immediately wasteland it.
I'm interested to see if that was on purpose here. You see Alan's hand 2 more Tropical Islands. He may be happy to play land drop for land drop when he's got nothing else to do.
If so, it's a really good bait on Alan's side.
And Wastelands are pretty annoying for the Infect deck to play against. It's one of the cheap forms of interaction that can handle something like Inkmoth Nexus.
Yeah, and if you don't know what your opponent's playing against, you'd be pretty tempted to waste a guy who mulled the 6 off something. But you're absolutely right. He managed to get Estrada to waste something that was not an Inkmoth, which is a small victory for him. So now Estrada hasn't played anything yet. Remember, he is a tempo deck, so he's going to want to get something down there. His creatures are Tarmogoyf, Deathrite Shaman, Delver of Secrets, and a pair of Tombstalkers.
Alan Weil's deck, on the other hand, pretty straightforward set of Infect creatures, Blight Agent, Listener Elf, and Noble Hierarch as well.
Yeah, those have been really the go-to cards. We have seen occasionally people play Ichor Mirror or Necropede. I believe both of those are in the deck that Tom Ross uses. None of those are in Alan Weil's list, however.
Sometimes they're sideboard cards, but...
We'll see what he goes for. It's going to be a Tarmogoyf, but that's going to meet with a Daze and Dazed back.
Yeah, do not believe that Alan floated mana there, so Brenden was able to daze back.
Yeah, had he floated mana, he would have been able to pay for that daze.
I'm also not sure if it was even worthwhile for Alan to fight over that Tarmogoyf. You see his hand with 2 Blighted Agents, he's got a Berserk and an Invigorate. To me, the fight has to be over a removal spell like, you know, something that can interact. This Tarmogoyf's a pretty slow clock.
Yeah, we see on Estrada's side, he's going to go ahead now him to Turok Weil. And 6 cards in his hand. He's going to get a random 2 of them. This could be pretty good. 1 through 5. He gets a Berserk and an Invigorate. So the 2 halves of the 2-card combo both gotten. The Berserk's not too bad to get, as actually Weil has a second Berserk, but that Invigorate I have to assume is going to hurt some.
That was a big piece of the puzzle here for Weil.
Also importantly is, up until now, Estrada probably assumed his opponent was also on Bug Delver, but now now he knows a lot better.
Although it appears that Weil has just top decked another Invigorate, so...
Yeah, I believe it actually was a Might of Old Krosa. So...
Can still generate a combo kill alongside Berserk.
Absolutely. Blighted Agent is the play for Weil. Will there be a Liliana or an Abrupt Decay or a Disfigure for it? We will see. In the absence there, it looks like he does have an Abrupt Decay. He also has another Hymn to Turok. So he has to pick how much does he respect a combo kill here. A lot. He's not going for the Hymn, he's just going to go for the Abrupt Decay.
And I think that's good instincts here. It's hard to lose the game pacing it this way, but it's really easy to lose the game if you let Weil on tap with one of his Infect creatures.
Yeah, I do think Weil has a replacement Blighted Agent, so he may have to hope to hymn away the combo next turn. Weil here, and this is something, I want to point out something he could have played around here. So he drew Force for the turn, he's going to make a Blighted Agent, and I believe he has 2 or 3 cards remaining in his hand. I believe it's just 2. This hymn is way better because Weil played a Forest.
Yeah, he's going to lose everything here, and the cards he's losing are significant.
Right, he could have Shield. Yeah, he has Berserk and Might of Old Krosa. That was a 2-card combo. And, yeah, Might of Old Krosa is pumps 2 plus 2 on their turn, +4/+4 on your turn.
So that is a kill. That's another 1 + 4 × 2.
Yeah, sorry, it's actually not turn. What is it? It's if you could have played so if you play it like it was a sorcery, then you get the 4/4. So it's a little different than your own turn. But similar. You have to have it
functionally very similar, though not quite the same thing.
Yeah, with the faded cards in Standard are like that, except that they say turn, so you can do stuff like you know, I can upkeep, cast a Fated Conflagration at your face, and then I get my Scry 2. But you, with Might of Old Crozet, you would not get the powered up version.
Correct.
So he's going to need some help. Blighted Agent is joined by another Blighted Agent. But Weil's down to 8. He's not winning this race right now.
Yeah, he's way behind. And this deck is all about generating 2 cards. You know, you need 2 bump spells. Ideally, it's something like Invigorate Berserk. And Alan does not really have 2 draw steps left.
Ponder is the play for Estrada. He has 1 poison on him. I don't believe Weil has a draw that can get him enough poison next turn.
Well, he may be able to chump block and then draw a running sequence of spells. That's a possibility.
Yeah, one of these agents is going, you're right though, is going to have to chump block. Also, I believe Estrada has a follow-up Tarmogoyf, so if he does that, then Weil would have to double chump block, and I don't think he can afford to do that.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you have to play like Brenden has nothing. Any removal spell, even any additional creature is probably too much for Weil to overcome at this point.
Yes, we see that Tarmogoyf on play. It is a 4/5. Estrada's going to crack a fetch land here. He had a Ponder. He shuffled and drew.
So if he has a follow-up Tarmogoyf here, I think that's going to do it.
Yep, he also has a Daze, so even if Weil draws that pair of spells, it's going to be difficult for him. We do see the second Tarmogoyf, and he's not going to attack, though.
That's very odd. I don't know if he's under the impression that he can block these Blighted Agents or what, but...
Yeah, that gives Weil another turn to draw another Blighted Agent. I would think you just swing your 2 Blighted Agents in. Yeah, Brenden, a little bit of a miss there. He should still be fine, though. I think he's still ahead, though. Right, next turn, he's going to have to chump here, so it still is like Estrada still has the game, I believe.
Yeah, because I don't think there's any +5 effect.
Yeah. So he plays a third Tarmogoyf, so he 3 Tarmogoyfs versus 3 Blighted Agents. This race is in the Tarmogoyf's favor. One of them gets chumped by a Blighted Agent. Weil will go down to 4, I believe. And right now, this Spring will only put Estrada to 5 poison. Yeah, I don't believe there's a +5. And Pendelhaven certainly won't do it. So game 1 goes over to Brenden Estrada.
I think this matchup is typically pretty good for Infect, but when you aren't able to get out in the front foot and they're able to deploy their things like Abrupt Decay, like Liliana the Veil, then Bug Delver gets a pretty big edge there.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I mean, I would think that like this is a decent game for Infect. There are a few decks that can play tempo with Delver, but I think Infect's mana costs are low enough that it may be able to do it.
When I've seen Infect struggle, it's against an overload of 1 mana reaction. Things like Swords to Plowshares and Lightning Bolt, those are hard for the deck to overcome.
Like Blue-White Red Miracles, for example. Yeah. Tough matchup.
Delver, Umezawa's Tute plus a lot cheap removal. Abrupt Decay is more expensive and critically cannot target Inkmoth Nexus. So you need Wastelands to contain the Nexus, and then cheap removal to contain the Infect creatures in the deck, plus your own clock, and it's just asking a lot out of the Bug Delver deck, though Brenden was able to put that together that game.
Yeah, like one of the scary things, there's this one copy of Disfigure in Estrada's main, and actually 2 more on the board, and I think once Estrada can board into those, this will become a much harder matchup for a while.
Yeah, it's a huge boon to have. I'm sure the Dismembers are in this deck board to fight other Tarmogoyf decks or what have you, but this is a matchup where it's really awesome to have access to that effect.
All right, so I have actually a question for you here. So looking at M15, we're seeing 3 Disfigures in this list, and I was curious whether or not we would see any players choose to cast Ulcerates over Disfigures. It looks like the answer is no here.
Well, for me, it's what are the 3 toughest creatures that you're actually looking to fight in the format? It's interesting you should mention that because you know, I've been debating whether or not you're supposed to play Searing Blaze versus Searing Blood in Burn, and I think the part of the argument for Searing Blood is that all the creatures you care about in Legacy are 2 toughness. Deathrite Shaman, Stoneforge Mystic, et cetera, et cetera. After you get past that, most of the creatures you're talking about are larger. What are the critical 3 toughness creatures in Legacy? You're looking at Painter Servant, Sarah Avenger. It's a pretty short list of 3 toughness creatures that are significant.
2 is the magic number.
2 is the magic number, and then you're talking then about Tarmogoyfs and Tombstalkers and so forth, where you need something larger than that. So if there was an influx of 3 toughness creatures that were significant, or there were just more painter servants and more Sarah Avengers floating around, I could see an argument for this card. But the way the Legacy metagame is shaping up right now, it's a lot of 2 toughness creatures or a lot of stuff much bigger than -3/-3 handles.
Yeah, it isn't.
Although in this matchup, I'm sure our Bug player would much rather have Ulcerate.
Yeah, well, I mean, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that losing 3 life against Infect is not actually a drawback. I mean, a lot of this actually has to do with, see, you know, we don't, Dismember doesn't see much play in Legacy, even though that card is actually pretty similar to Ulcerate, right? You could just play it as 1 mana, -4/-4, you lose 4 life.
Yeah.
And it's the same card. And we don't really see that. We just see Disfigure as, because it doesn't lose life.
Well, it's an interesting feature with Bug. I feel like the life total is more of a resource than people give it credit for, especially once you're talking about adding cards like Dismember. You already have Thoughtseize in the deck. You already have your fetch lands in the deck. You have Force Wills in your deck. Individually, these cards don't matter very much, but the total sum is Bug plays games where it kind of just gets low on life and can get kind of picked apart in games it was otherwise winning. So a card there that says pay 3 life on it, there needs to be significant rewards, and it's not clear the way the Legacy metagame is right now that it's a substantial upgrade over Disfigure.
There was a lot of noise around Ulcerate, actually. But to be fair, though, I think people can underestimate just how much life 3 life is. You know, burn decks pay full value to make you lose 3 life, for example. They're more than happy to lava spike you. So when you're doing it to yourself, like, that's on an almost discard, like, that's not that far from discarding a card.
It's a weird thing. There's a lot of people, you know, I see this logic approach to all the time in Magic where basically I'm playing a matchup like Burn, where of course my life total matters. I'm going to go out of my way to preserve it. Or my life total doesn't matter at all. And there's a lot of Magic, even in Legacy, that gets played in the middle of that. Decks like Death and Taxes and Rug Delver and other sorts of Delver decks, they're not explicitly burn decks, but the games do come down to damage racing sometimes. Your life total is a resource, especially when you're putting it on top of Force of Wills and Fetch Lands and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think the metagame would have to have substantially more significant 3 toughness creatures before you saw Bug players move to a card like Ulcerate.
Yeah. It's actually one of the stark differences between Modern and Legacy is that in Modern, like, the incremental damage you take from your lands in Modern is not irrelevant.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just like shock every turn and just think that things will be okay.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we're gonna go back into our match though. These players are still shuffling for game 2. We do have Brenden Estrada left, Alan Weil right, Infect and Bug Delver. Right now, Bug Delver up a game here. It is really kind of about like the cheap removal does seem to matter. It's interesting. Disfigure has become a card that's like, it's kind of a black lightning bolt if you're looking for one.
The 2 most important creatures, or if you had to summarize the format's 3 most important creatures, what's your list?
Stoneforge Mystic, Delver of Secrets, Deathrite Shaman.
And it kills them all.
Right.
There you go. It is weird to see a format so powerful play what looks like a booster draft common. It always stands out in these lists, but it is the best removal spell Black has access to handle the most significant creatures in the format.
Hey, it was a high pick in Zendikar Limited, though.
It was really good in draft. It was
yeah,
really good in draft.
I mean, they never really made it past 5th pick.
Yeah, but
it was Black's 2nd best common.
Right, but Glazing Gladeheart was also really good in draft, and it's not knocking down any doors in Legacy, so.
That's true.
To my knowledge.
Neither is Hideous End, which was actually the best, in most people's opinion, better than Disfigure at the
time. It was
time.
also, in my opinion, better than Disfigure.
Yeah. They wouldn't, you know, Hideous End is like, you don't get removal like that in draft much anymore. That's like a common unconditional murder with drawback, with upside.
They don't make them like they used to as far as that goes. They
No.
decided it's better to let people actually manifest their synergies rather than the best draft decks always being blue-black, kill it, bounce all your stuff, and kill you with a generic flyer.
Brenden Estrada on the draw. He's going to keep 7. Weil is on 6 cards for the 2nd game.
Aaron Forsyth referred to it as, I believe, Gravedigger divination strategies, which were always, or not always, but very often the best thing to be doing in draft.
You'd much rather be the guy casting the Doomblade than the guy casting the target for Doomblade.
Yeah. So I like that draft is less the case like that now than it used to be.
One of the things that I've actually, and I've thought about this a bit in drafting, which you see in M15, is I've liked how they aren't getting rid of removal. You know, we saw like in Absent Restored, how that can actually be problematic. When there's no good removal, things can really go bad. But, you know, so for example, in M15, say like Black's the removal color, right? You have like some pretty good removal. You have a Convoke 4 mana, like you have Covenant of Blood, it drains for 4. You have the 5 mana basic dark, you know, kill a creature it can't regenerate. But they've cost to them at the point where it's no longer like, a lot of games, you know, you'd ask what's the best common in this color, you'd be like, oh, it's the kill spell, you know, and it's questionable now whether that is still true.
Yeah, to me, it's about sort of density too. Like one really high quality removal spell at common for a color may make the draft experience better, in fact. Because
Lightning Strike.
Yeah, but having 3 cards as good at Lightning Strike at common means that too much of the games are about just killing all of your opponent's stuff rather than doing proactive things. So
I can't have Doomblade and Tendrils of Corruption and Merfolk Looter.
right, that for example, I think even Doomblade at common is a mistake. So a lot of it also is just about saturation and density.
All right, we are underway. Alan Weil, turn 1 on the play with Inkmoth Nexus, and it's gonna get hit by Wasteland. And we're back on to Alan Weil. Probably hoping to swing with that card. Once again, showing the strength of Wasteland. He has a ton of lands here. He has his first 3 cards we can see are 3 fetch lands.
But having that Aimbot Nexus get tagged there is really rough. That's one of his. That's the card in the matchup that's the hardest for Brenden to handle, though. He does have those dismembers that we alluded to before.
Remember, you can't Abrupt Decay in Inkmoth Nexus even after it's been activated because Abrupt Decay says non-land card.
And now Alan, I believe, has no infect creatures left over. And Dismember is so nice in this matchup too, more so than Lightning Bolt is, or Disfigure rather, and the Dismember. Or you said you has
just Disfigure.
Oh, just Disfigure. Still an upgrade over something like Lightning Bolt or Plow in the matchup, because often what happens in the matchup is, you know, you try to play a removal spell. I try to play my guy. You remove it. In response, I invalidate your removal spell. You still at least get the -2/-2, which means that you can survive certain attacks.
It's not like Lightning Bolt and Giant Growth, where when you bolt the guy in the Giant Growth, that you just lose everything.
Right.
So we had there, Brenden on his turn tried to make his own threat in terms of Delver of Secrets. Alan kind of flooded on lands, took that opportunity to daze the Delver of Secrets, at least keeping the board clean while he searches for another infect threat.
I think another really critical tool in this matchup for Alan is access to crop rotation, because Brenden plays so much on his own turn. He plays a lot of sorcery speed stuff. That crop rotation into Nexus, into kill you, is a real line of play. And in fact, he may want crop rotation even more than he wants certain creatures in this matchup.
Yeah. He does have a creature. This is Noble Hierarch. Remember, in the Infect deck, this is the one creature they play 4 of that is not an Infector. Mainly because, first, the card quality is pretty good, and it does pseudo-infect damage by pumping your Infectors.
And the deck isn't all about combo killing either. There's plenty of games you play where, you know, you have a Pendelhaven and Noble Hierarch, and you're just chipping away. And if your opponent ever does, you know, makes a move to try to kill your guy, you can use your pump spells to save it.
Yeah. And Brenden kind of having that formula you mentioned where Infect has a problem with a survey of 1-mana cards. We see Brenden had a Delver on turn 1. It got countered. That was fine. Next turn 2, disfigured the Noble Hierarch and then played another Delver. So he's, you know, he has cast 3 cards off his first 3 mana. And as a result, he's ahead on the board right now. Or he's tempo-wise ahead of the Infect player.
With Abrupt Decay left over in all of this too, so he's really going to have to find a Nexus.
Yeah, find Nexus, hope the Bug player does not have another Disfigure or another way to get rid of it. And then the problem is he still hasn't done any Infect damage. You know, he doesn't seem to be able to stick a threat at all. Brainstorm comes from Estrada. He's going to try to reload with some kill spells as he waits around this Delver. I believe this is an upkeep Brainstorm because he wants to guarantee the Delver flip. And he's going to go ahead, yeah, using the cards there from Brainstorm to reveal a Ponder that he's put on top of his deck. That Ponder flips the Delver into Insectile Aberration. And Brendan's going to go ahead and continue here with what I believe may be another Delver. And it is. So a triple Delver start for Brenden. And then Alan was able to take the first one, but the second one's already flying and hitting him in the air. And I have to mention off that Brainstorm, the third one is following in its tracks.
But don't count Alan out of this game just yet. Crop rotation can still steal this.
He's going to see what he's up against. He casts the Jataxian Probe. He sees Ponder, Misty Rainforest, and Tarmogoyf. Alan, cognizant of just how much damage these Delvers can do, opted to pay for the Jataxian Probe with blue instead of punching himself for it. Plays Pendelhaven.
Has the Legends Pendelhaven too, which is how you can separate the casual Infect players from the pros.
Well, was it reprinted in one of the from the Vault Realms?
It was in Time Spiral.
Oh, okay, so it's not a time-shifted Pendelhaven. Right.
It may have been in some from the vault, though I don't think so. But
Okay, second Delver flips this time too. Takes 6, Allen is down to 8. That one's gonna flip off that Abrupt Decay we'd been mentioning. And Brenden he's just gonna go aggro here. Tarmogoyf joins the pair of Delvers. This could be lethal, is lethal as soon as next turn.
yeah. He's far enough ahead that there is almost an argument for leaving back one of the insectile aberrations to protect him from a crop rotation, but also an argument made for just trying to get him dead.
Yeah, card accidentally knocked off the top, not a big deal. Judge corrects that play. Allen's gonna get a creature on the board, but is it gonna be enough? It's Blighted Agent. We do see a lot of pump spells. It looks like Vines of Vastwood and Invigorate are in Allen's hand, but I just don't think he can do enough.
Well, he's on chump block detail now.
Right. It's Invigorate, Vines of Vastwood. So it's possible if that Tarmogoyf stays at 4/4, at 4/5. Allen would think, yeah, it's gonna get Abrupt Decayed, but he can give it Shroud with Vines, so that's fine. Interesting enough, had Brenden opted to Abrupt Decay it on his own turn, he could have gotten Allen Weil in this way because the Shroud would have stopped Allen from pumping. Well, I guess I was gonna say he could have stopped it from being able to save itself.
Yeah.
He blocks, Allen goes for the Invigorate, he goes for the Abrupt Decay, then Allen would have to go for Vines, but then his own Invigorate wouldn't work, so he'd have to dump all his Invigorates. Brenden makes a lethal swing here, but the Tarmogoyf's only a 4/5. Allen can block and Invigorate here to stay alive. He's going to go ahead and do that. Estrada will go up to an irrelevant 23. And now with 4 damage in hand, he needs a +4 on the attack next turn to survive. He can Pendelhaven it, Invigorate it, that's 6. He's gonna need 4 more. So he's gonna need a Berserk or a Might of Old Krosa or an Invigorate or a Vines.
Yeah, still very much alive.
And that's like, yeah, I think if Brenden had killed it on his own turn, he wouldn't have had this out.
Yeah.
But unless you're experienced playing against Infect, I don't think that's something you'd see right away by any means. And that looks like a Vendilion click cast here. Well, in response, he's going to go ahead and Invigorate his own Blighted Agent.
You might as well just blank it. So
well, there's a problem here. I think he needed to Pendelhaven in response to that.
yes, that puts the 4-outer. Berserk's still an out, but
it takes away the other outs.
Correct, but
His
doesn't
top card
find
was
it.
Noble Hierarch, so it didn't end up on. That would have been one of those moments if he'd realized, like, say he flipped Vines there, he'd look and be like, oh.
Too bad.
Yep. But as is, Brenden Estrada wins 2-0 over Allen Weil. He's going to be moving on to 7-1, possibly in top 8. Maybe needs one more win. We will see. But Allen Weil at 6-2, he is done for the day. One more round to see if he can finish in the top 32. But